Now, you don't suffer for the same reasons that Jesus suffered. Jesus suffered for our sins. He's already died for our sins. He suffered for that. But he said, in the same way that he suffered, arm yourselves with the same mind, because you're going to have to suffer some things. The Bible teaches that Jesus was perfected or matured through the things that he suffered. And God will let you go through some things, and you don't understand why you've got to go through what you've got to go through. But God said, I'm going to grow you up, baby girl, baby boy. I'm going to grow you up. You'll have to go through some things because it brings maturity to you. You must suffer many things. Your suffering will teach you great lessons. It'll mature you. It'll begin to bring perfection to your spirit. Isn't it something that as you mature, that it seems like you become isolated? So you go from suffering into solitude. Suffering, solitude. Suffering oftentimes leads into solitude. You become rejected by the folks, the elders, the chief priests, the scribes, the folks that ought to have your backs, folks that you think that ought to love you and be able to respond to you. But after you've gone through the suffering, connected with that suffering, that exacerbates the suffering, that adds insult to injury, suffering then leads you into solitude. You go from suffering into solitude into sacrifice. Along with suffering and solitude comes sacrifice. And so you go from suffering to solitude to sacrifice. Yes, suffering, trouble does not last always. Weeping may endure for a night, but so suffering, it has a death date to it, already built into it. Your suffering that leads you into solitude, that leads you into sacrifice, it will finally bring you into a place of sublimation, where it leaves you at a higher level than where you were. And see, when you've sublimated, now you've gone through things, and people used to talk about you, and it used to make you cry. But when you sublimated, now their words bounce off of you like water off of a duck's back. It doesn't hurt you anymore. You're no longer bothered by the things that they are saying to you. Now, you have sublimated. You're not the same. You're not in the same form. You've been transformed, but you're at a higher level of existence now. When you were water, they could always stick their finger in you and move you. They knew how to push your buttons and ruffle your feathers. But when you sublimate, now you're steam. They can't touch this. You can't touch this because I've sublimated. I'm at a higher level now. You don't even get to that until you've gone through the death of sacrifice, until you've been in solitude, until you've gone through suffering.